A soldier, Charles Ryder, is receiving haircuts from a barber who asks him where he's been, and he replies he's been making some jungle paintings. Later on at a gallery, Charles' wife Celia eulogizes him as a fine British artist, while others also appreciate his works. He retreats to himself, and his attention is caught by the presence of a familiar lady among the crowd. Their eyes meet, and she hurriedly leaves, but he makes sure to follow her till they reach a room where she calls his name and they start to talk. 10 years earlier, Charles packs his things and gets ready to go to Oxford. His dad asks him questions about his stay there, and he tells him that his cousin Jasper will be the one to show him around, which his father approves of, but he shows no enthusiasm for Charles going to Oxford. At Oxford, he meets Jasper, who shows him around and tells him about the school rules. Jasper takes him to his room and tells him that he doesn't like the room because of how others usually abuse it since it's on the ground floor and easily accessible to all. Just then, a drunk man vomits right into the room, while Charles cleans it up later. Lunt, a messenger, comes inside with a bouquet and says it is from Lord Sebasian Flyte, the drunk man from last night, and tells Charles to stop cleaning as he's not supposed to. The messenger then tells Charles that Sebastian is inviting him out to lunch. At lunch, Sebastian offers Charles some plover's eggs to eat, apologizing for the last night. As they discuss, Charles tells him that he is a painter and is in his first year of school reading history. Sebastian then asks Charles to paint him, which Charles agrees to, but soon enough, Sebastian's friends arrive and engage Charles in a discussion. Along the line, another arrives late and moves on to peck Sebastian, to the surprise of Charles. They all try to mock Charles for being a painter, and he tells them that painting is better than taking a photograph because it records emotions better. Hearing this, Sebastian supports and cheers him. Sebastian gets fond of him as he takes him to different places, including Brideshead, his family castle, to meet his nanny. She welcomes Charles and tells him that Lady Marchmain is on her way up from London to Brideshead, but Sebastian says that she will not meet them. As they prepare to leave, a rosary falls off, and as Charles picks it up to give Hawkins, she tells him that she prays for Sebastian every day. Charles later asks Sebastian for a quick tour around the house before they leave. Sebastian does, and also takes him to the chapel. Moments later, they hurriedly leave the Brideshead in Sebastian's car and pass an oncoming car occupied by his mother and sister. Charles starts to ask questions about Sebastian's family and why he is mysterious about them. So Sebastian tells him that he does not want Charles to be mixed up in his family because he is his very good friend now. After the school term is over, while Charles is at home with his dad, he receives a message from Sebastian that he is gravely injured and that Charles should come to him at once. His father tells him that Sebastian would not have been the one to sign it if he were truly gravely injured, but Charles insists. Sebastian's sister Julia picks Charles up from the train station. On their journey home, Julia tells Charles that Sebastian is not as badly hurt as he thought, and that is Sebastian's way of luring him to come. But Charles says he's happy to come to the house anyway. At the house, Charles finds Sebastian in a wheelchair and drives him around. Later that day, while they all gossip, Charles reveals to Julia and Sebastian that he's an atheist and that his mother is dead. Julia tells Charles that he must know what he is getting into, as Lady Marchmain takes her faith very seriously, to the extent that she's called a living saint. But Julia tells Charles that she and Sebastian are both heathens. Sebastian denies this and says he alone is a sinner, but she is not. Afterwards, Charles and Sebastian play and drink a lot, and Charles also gets to draw and paint. One evening, as they drink some wine, Sebastian pecks Charles on the lips. The next day, while Charles and Sebastian swim, Sebastian's brother, Bridie, arrives with the lady, who later invites Charles to dinner. On his way to the dining room, he hears muffled cries from Sebastian while his mom talks to him about him not feeling guilty. Julia then comes by and shows him the way to the dining room. At the diner, his mom welcomes him and asks him about his background and hobbies, to which Sebastian answers by saying Charles is a painter. The lady tells Charles that he must paint something for them at Brideshead, which he agrees to. Sebastian then tells the lady that his father, Lord Marchmain, called for him and Julia to come to Venice. He says he will go, but the lady makes Julia rethink her decision to go and says she will stay with their mother. The lady then invites Charles to the chapel after dinner. After chapel, the lady tells Charles that she wants Charles to go with Sebastian to see Lord Marchmain so that he can act as a positive influence on Sebastian. Not long after, Seb takes a boat ride with Julia and Charles and tells Charles about his father. He says Lord Marchmain has a mistress named Kara, and that is why he could not remain in society, unlike the Italians who adore him. They arrive in Venice, and Seb introduces Charles to Lord Marchmain. Not long after, Charles and Julia discuss, and she tells him that she is the family shadow as she does not have the same character as anyone in her family. Afterwards, they all drink and chatter about art and religion, and Julia accuses Lord of leaving them. Later on, when they all go to the beach, while Charles is painting, Kara tells him that Lady is not as gentle as she seems to be, and her children are evidence of this. So, Kara tells him to tread carefully, especially with his relationship with Sebastian. One evening, while they go out partying, Julia asks Charles to protect her from others. Soon enough, Julia gets mixed up and lost in the crowd, so Charles looks for her, while Sebastian looks for both of them. Moments later, Charles finds her in a dark alley, and they massage each other's lips in pleasure. while Sebastian looks at them from afar, unknown to them. Later on, while Julia runs into the chapel to make her confession, Charles runs into Sebastian and realizes that Sebastian saw them. He tries to explain to Sebastian that he didn't mean it, but Seb shuns him. Charles later goes home to meet his father. While they play chess, his father asks about Sebastian, who supposedly was injured, and he assures him of his safety. At school, Charles finds Sebastian drunk and running from Mr. Samgrass, who has been set by the lady to watch him. Charles offers to help him stop Samgrass, but Seb says he is not sure he wants to see Charles again. Lady Marchmain calls to see Charles and talks to him about Sebastian and his drinking lifestyle. She asks Charles about Venice and his attraction to Julia, and tells him that he should not think that anything will happen between him and Julia because he's an atheist. Charles then tells her that he does not think Sebastian wants to be his friend anymore, but she tells him to fix it. She also questions his atheism as having a purpose on Earth. Julia celebrates her birthday at the Brideshead, and Charles attends, where he meets a Canadian businessman, Rex Martram, and later, Sebastian, who tells him that Lady Marchmain has stopped his bank account. At the party, Lady Marchmain announces that Julia is getting engaged to Rex. So Rex and Julia go to the stage to dance to the tune of the orchestra playing. Julia's sister Cordelia forces Charles to the dance floor to dance with her, but later leaves him saying he can't dance. So Rex offers to interchange for a while, making Charles and Julia dance. Charles asks her why she didn't tell him about her engagement, but she leaves because she cannot handle the already tense atmosphere between them. Sebastian comes into the hall drunk, causing embarrassment to himself. Lady then asks Charles if he gave Sebastian any money earlier, to which he confirms. So, she sends him away from Brideshead. 4 years later, when he becomes a professional painter, he meets Celia one day at his gallery, who compliments his paintings. Later that evening, he meets the lady who had come by to his house. She congratulates Charles on his first exhibition and tells him that she wants him to help her bring Sebastian home from Morocco because she's worried about him. So, Charles heads to Morocco to look for Sebastian and is told by Sebastian's friend that Sebastian is in the hospital. When Charles gets to the hospital, he's told by the doctor that Sebastian has influenza and has fluid in his lungs, so he will not be able to travel with Charles. He gets to meet Sebastian and tells him that his mother is dying, but Sebastian refuses to follow him, saying that he does not wish to go back to Brideshead. Sebastian also tells him to run away from Brideshead and never look back. Charles delivers this message to the lady, making her disappointed. Years later, at his exhibition on an ocean liner, as Celia sings his praises to people, he sees Julia and follows her to her room. She denies knowing that he was in the same boat as she was. They discuss and realize that they are both still in love with each other, and they make love. She later tells him that the reason why she married Rex was because he is a Catholic, and that's what her now late mom approves of. They then agree to leave their spouses and return to Brideshead. They get to Brideshead, where they meet Rex, who has guests in Brideshead over the coming war with Hitler. They also meet Bridie, who announces that he's engaged to be married, as he throws shade at Julia for bringing in a sinner like Charles to Brideshead. Later on, Charles schedules a meeting with Rex to make his intentions about Julia known to him. Unknown to them, Julia is eavesdropping outside. Rex makes Charles an offer to collect 2 of his jungle paintings before he can release Julia to him. He nods to agree, and Rex tells him afterwards that Julia can't make any children again as they lost the only one they had. Hearing this, Julia walks away. Charles goes out to look for her, and she tells him that she feels being with him is going to make her free since she's been living in guilt all her life. Later on, Charles and Julia leave the Brideshead. As they drive out, they come across 2 cars driving in, and she recognizes Lord Marchmain and Kara in the vehicle. She then asks Charles to drive the car around. When they arrive at the building, Kara tells Julia that Lord Marchmain is terminally ill and has a heart disease. They decide not to inform Sebastian because they know that he will not come, while Julia asks Bridie to call for a priest for their father. Charles speaks to Lord Marchmain about Julia bringing a priest to him. Lord Marchmain asks Charles why he's so concerned about it, and says he will only do what he wants to do. Later on, Father McKay comes around, but Lord Marchmain sends him away, saying he does not want to see him. Later that night, Julia tells Charles that she cannot leave now because her father is dying, and asks him what he wants because she feels like she's worth only 2 jungle paintings. Charles asks her not to be ridiculous, as it was not his decision to exchange her for his paintings, and he tells her that they should both run away to another place. Early the next morning, Lord Marchmain makes some uncomfortable sounds, and this alerts the whole house. He then confesses his sins, while Father McKay gives him absolution for his sins. Charles is surprised to see that Julia is also performing the confession with them. Having done the cross sign, the Lord Marchmain later dies. Julia then makes a vow to God to follow her faith. With this decision, she cannot follow Charles again, and he lets her go. Years later, the World War starts, and Charles returns once more to Brideshead as an army officer, which is now a military base. He gets to know from another soldier that Julia is serving in the women's service overseas, and that Bridie has already passed away in the Blitz. Later on, he goes to the family chapel, where he finds a dimly lit candle. He wants to snuff out this candlelight, but rethinks his decision as memories of Julia and Sebastian flood him.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.